Welcome to the Emergency Management Do One Thing personal video training series. My name is Quentin Graham. As an emergency manager, it is our goal to provide continuous training towards making a disaster resilient installation. What this means is that as an installation team, we respond together to quickly save lives, mitigate the hazard, and return to normal operations. Because we, the installations, are the backbone for the warfighter. This series focuses on completing one thing each month to become more prepared. We use the Do One Thing program. Now, for the next essential topic, your instructor. Welcome back, and this is Quentin Graham, your favorite emergency manager with Do One Thing. And this month we're talking about water. Small steps to prepare your community for emergencies. So, disasters change things. Things that we take for granted every day might be hard to find, including water. So let's take a look at the calendar. Last month we discussed make a plan. This month is water. And the following month, you kind of see, as we're going to go through, is sheltering. Why water? So whether you live in the country or the city, your water supply relies on electricity to run the system. During a power outage, you may find yourself without a way to get water. Your water supply can also become unsafe to drink. Both private wells and city water systems can be contaminated in a disaster, mostly because it's underground, and if there's a flood, you have contaminants potentially. So it's good to take different kind of precautions that you can do, and we'll kind of discuss those. So, disaster change things. Not necessarily that people don't believe that disasters will happen. It's that underestimate the impact, and that's the key thing, the impact, or overestimate their ability to handle it when it does. And the thing is you never know what you're going to do until you get put in that situation. So, kind of some things to keep in mind is that disasters can happen in an instant. Little or no information is going to be available, and it's hard to make decisions because you have to make split-second type decisions sometimes, and you may not always have time to think through what the outcomes may be, and you may not know what is going to happen next. Even though you make one decision, you don't know if that was the right one or not. But let me kind of give you some comfort in that you're going to make the best decision possible with the information that you have on hand. So, talking about decisions, let's choose one thing to do this month. Purchase and store a 72-hour supply of commercially bottled water, or up to 2 weeks worth, preferably maybe a little bit more if you can. Bottle a 72-hour supply of water at home. Learn how to provide a safe supply of drinking water for your household in a disaster. So, let's kind of look at option one. Purchase and store a 72-hour supply of commercial bottled water, or up to 2 weeks if you can. So, plan for 1 gallon per person per day for drinking and hygiene. Seems like a lot? Not really. So, during a disaster, you should drink at least 1/2 gallon of water a day. More than that whole gallon is that if you are pregnant, if you are sick, the weather is hot, and if you're a child tends to have a little bit more energy and stuff, so they tend to kind of use up that water that they drink during the day. So 72 hours, just a reminder, is equal to 3 days. So let's kind of look at this. How much water? So if we look at just what we have highlighted here, one person for 3 days, that's 3 gallons of water. So if we have 10 people for 3 days, that's 30 gallons of water. So you can kind of use this matrix right here, and we're going to leave it here for just a second so you can kind of jot down what you're kind of thinking. And also notice on the bottom part of this chart is that About a third of a gallon is for a small to medium pet, and about a gallon per water per day is the appropriate for a large pet. Now, what we're talking about large pet is that the difference between a Yorkie and an Australian Shepherd. So that would be a small pet and a large pet. Or a rabbit would be a small pet, and a horse, it would be a large pet, but you may want to add more than that gallon per day for them. So they don't really have an extra large pet that's on here. So keep it in mind that cattle, horse, and everything else, you might want to bump those numbers up. So, emergency water supply. Some key things. Mark the date on your bottled water, especially if you've bottled it yourself. Replace it at least once a year, which also can mean have a purchase plan, where you either use that water for something and then you just slowly refill the water back up so you always have that water, or you the oldest one, and you bring that package to the soccer event or whatever else, and you buy another one and you put that one back in its place, and then you mark the date on it so that way your water never gets to be more than a year old. So one key thing that we really need to discuss is pets and disaster. Remember that disasters can be stressful for pets too, and they use up water when they're under stress, and they may need more water just because of that stress. So pack a water dish or bottle for your pets in an emergency kit. What I really like is those collapsible type of pet dishes, because you can put them in a very small space and pull it out, and the dog you can pour water in it. It's really easy. So, option 2. Bottle a 72-hour supply of water at home. So, here's some key things to do. Bottling water at home, use clear plastic or glass bottles. Make sure you've rinsed those out, very thoroughly. Don't use milk jugs, because the potential of having, the contaminants still in there, even if you wash them out, you can't quite get it out, and then you get kind of weird type growing stuff in there, and you don't want that. So allow those containers to air dry, and that'll help make sure they get all that moisture and everything out first, and then I know it sounds weird, and then you put the water in there and kind of cap it off. So if your water comes from a well, then add 6 drops of bleach to each gallon of water. Now, I understand that if you live from a well water, right, that you can taste that bleach. Well, the intent of the bleach in there is to kind of offset the growing of stuff in that water. So allow to set for 30 minutes, and that's basically to let that chlorine and stuff gas off of the thing before closing the bottle. Otherwise you get a little bit more of a taste that's in there. And if you're on city water, they already put chlorine in it, so they already put that bleach that's in there. And really, really, really pay attention to this direction, because if you add a cap full of bleach, that might actually hurt you. 6 drops, you're by FDA standards, you're okay. So some definite things to keep in mind. Okay, so bottling that water at home, make sure those caps bottles are tight and store them out of direct sunlight. We don't want green things kind of growing in them, and mark the date on each bottle. So now the option 3 is learn how to provide a safe supply of drinking water for your household in a disaster, and you can do that from multiple types of sources. So if your local water supply becomes contaminated, you may be told to boil that water before using, and you may be given other instructions. Now, boiling that water can remove harmful bacteria and other organisms, but if water is contaminated by chemicals, boiling won't make it safe because it doesn't get rid of the chemicals. But if you also do boiling and then you like capture that water and it, drips down, then you remove the chemicals because the chemicals will stay in the plant, in the pan itself. So, but always follow those emergency instructions that are given out, because based on what the contaminant is and what the bacteria, the organism is, they look at that, and then the industrial hygienist actually gives recommendations as to what can actually be done to give you a safe supply of water for you and your family and your pets. So water in your water heater tank, do not use the tank or fixtures if it's been submerged in flood water, but that water in your water heater tank can also be used. And you can also, kind of use some different other systems there. But you turn off the gas or electricity to the water heater because you're taking that water out, and you don't want that, that thing kicking on while you're trying to use the water. So turn off the water intake valve, obviously, because you don't have water pressure. So you want to create that type of suction there. Open the drain valve at the bottom of the tank, and then turn on a hot water faucet in the house all the way, and therefore you can get that water out of the water tank. Water in the standing in pipes is turn off the main water valve where the water comes into your house, usually near the water meter, because you don't want to create that back pressure type thing. Let air into the pipes by turning on the highest faucet in your house, and then get water from the lowest faucet that's in your house. And never get water from faucets that have been submerged in floor water, of course, because then you've got contaminants and stuff like that that'll be on that particular faucet. So, if you have room in your freezer, consider storing part of your water supply as ice. And this makes a lot of sense, especially if you got extra room in that freezer. You got a stand-up or a chest freezer or something like that, because that actually helps not only just for water, but it also helps keep that freezer colder longer, which keeps your food frozen longer. So when your freezer is full, it takes less energy to keep it cold, and then also it helps keep that freezer colder longer in that power outage, which is always important. And then try to replace ice every 6 months to avoid it developing a bad taste, because you kind of get that freezer burn taste. It's kind of yucky, but you just kind of cycle those containers out. Use them for that soccer trip or whatever else, and you put it in the cooler, right? And you drink it during the thing, and then you go back home, you put more water in it, you put it back in the freezer. It's only if it's empty first, but don't just like half full and then that kind of throws off your whole plan. But sorry, kind of went off on a sidetrack there. So safe drinking water in lakes, rivers, and streams is, you want to treat it, because there's all kinds of contaminants that are already naturally in there, and if your body's not used to those kind of contaminants, then you're easily going to get sick. So there's a lot of commercial type stuff that you use as camping supplies. You can use that water drop or that bleach dropper. You can do that kind of stuff and everything else, but always treat that water from an outdoor source as though it is contaminated. So you want to boil it, you want to do that kind of stuff that's in there. So most outdoor water supplies contain chemicals from stormwater runoff. So you want to see where is that water coming from. Especially if it's standing water, you really want to be careful with standing water, because a lot of stuff grows in that type of situation. If it's a normal type river or a stream where the water is going, you have less chance of actually getting not really a lot more contaminants in there, but you've got a lot of microorganisms and stuff that's in the rivers and streams. So a lot of those commercially available purification tabs, they also got like emergency filtration systems that you can use, which is like the straw, which has a carbon type filter in it and stuff, and those get out a vast majority of those type of contaminants, to include some of those chemical contaminants, if it's that straw type of thing or filtration type thing. You can also get those pitchers where you can like take a cup and you pour it in, and then it goes out through the pitcher itself. It's really cool. But so important is really, I know you're going to be tempted to ration water, but never, never, never ration water. Always drink as much as you need today, and as you're doing that, look for more for tomorrow, because if you're dehydrated today, you're not going to be feeling too good tomorrow if you're not drinking enough water. So one key thing that I always kind of point out is that you're the only one that can protect your family during a disaster, and doing one thing a month can make a difference. So next month we'll be discussing March, and it'll be sheltering in a disaster. May be asked to either evacuate or shelter in place. What does that mean? What do I need to do? Well, pay attention next month, and we'll kind of discuss with that. In an excitement of an emergency, it can be difficult to focus on what you're doing, especially, if you're in that kind of a personality, and that's okay, but need to know that type of stuff for these type of emergencies, and then find out what to do to keep your family safe. Because if your family's safe, then you're good. So for more information, my name's Quentin Graham. I'm your favorite emergency manager from Sea Army Depot Emergency Management. So you can always get more information from Do One Thing, which is www.doonething.com. They got some great resources there. Or since I'm Army, then you can also go to ready.army.mil. Thank you for listening, and hope you pay attention next month.